Great. Any questions? Yes, sorry.
So, the applications are due at the end of March, I think.
Mhm.
Right?
March
And then-
28th.
And then, what's the timeline for the decisions and notifying everyone who applied?
Sure. So you should get a, after the obvious message, hello, thank you, we received your thingy. We're looking at June. So, yeah. Yeah.
So you said no business writing. So
Okay.
two sentences, what I'm doing is writing a novel about a fictional town.
Okay.
But then I'm using the novel as a springboard to discuss cultural competency in the workbook that's attached.
Mhm.
I don't know. So it's not,
Okay.
it's sort of an unusual combination of a fictional novel and
Right.
non-fictional work.
Right, okay. So the question is, the grant stipulates that there's no business writing, right? But I think that if you're applying and you're focusing on the creative aspect of it, and you make sure that you kind of emphasize that, I think it should be fine. And I'm sorry, I was supposed to repeat the question. The question earlier was, what is the timeline? March 28th is the deadline, but when will winners be notified? We're looking at June of 2014, possibly July of 2014. Okay.
Can you touch on collaboration if you decide to collaborate with other writers
Mhm.
on the project?
Sure. Okay, so the question is on collaboration. As far as I know, collaboration is fine, but again, you should identify yourself as the lead artist, and make sure that it's, especially if you're the writer in it, and there aren't other writers, make sure that your focus is on the literary part of that.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, what's the period in which that, if you receive a grant, the money can be spent?
Yes, great question. So so the question is, if you win a grant, when is the actual timeline? The timeline is activities can't begin before September 1st, 2014, and they have to end by August of 2015. So you have about a year. Yes?
I have a related question.
Mhm.
When you were talking about last year's winners, many of these people were working on things that they obviously had started
Yep.
or wanted to continue
Yep.
to come to an
Yeah,
end.
definitely.
So if you have a project,
Mhm.
can you use that as part of your submission,
Mhm.
but then you just can't do the things that you outlined,
Right,
correct?
right. So, yeah, the question is, can you request funds for projects that have already begun or are in a specific phase? The answer is yes, you can. Obviously, we're not asking you to do completely new projects, but just be as transparent as possible in your proposal about where you are and how you think this is going to be a benefit to you both, artistically and professionally.
It's the Loft looking for projects that have any kind of Minnesota focus?
No.
Okay.
No, absolutely not. You have to be a Minnesota writer, but the themes, besides the genres, there's no restriction on theme.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Two questions.
Yes.
One is the CV specific to literary CV or a broader background of what you've done outside of writing? And the second is, what about follow-up after the grant is made?
Mhm.
Do you have to prove that you did what you said
Sure.
you were going to do?
Okay, so the first part of the question is the CV, should it be focused towards the literary? Yes, it should be. The second question is, if you win a grant, what is the follow-up process like? There is a follow-up process. You will be required to write a report at the end of it, and you'll be checking in with me periodically if you win this. Yeah. There was a question in the back?
Yeah, I have a question about the artistic resume that you sent in, or the CV.
Mm-hmm.
You said part of what you look for is how long you've been taking writing seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And what time period are you looking for?
Sure. So the question is, the artistic resume is asking folks to focus on telling us how long you've taken writing seriously. I don't think that we're looking for a ballpark here. I don't think that there's an idea. I think, again, what we kind of don't want is someone who thinks writing is kind of cute and then finds out that they can apply for $10,000, and you know what I mean? Like, you can be at any stage. You know, we just kind of want to know that this is not just a crazy little thing that you're doing. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just, you know. All right. Yeah, back there.
So does it need to be finished by August 1st of 2015 or August 31st?
You know, that's a good question. I believe the answer is August 31st, 2015. Yeah. I'm sorry, I think she was next, and then, okay, sure.
If you're, well, this is an electronic book, a picture book for kids or adults. Can you submit URLs, or how do you do that? How do you submit digital?
So the question is, how do you suggest submit digital work? I'm going to let Chris answer
Yeah,
that.
so through we're using Submittable, and if anybody didn't see, there's a guide sheet up there like how to submit using Submittable, but all kinds of visual formats are accepted through that, so you can send PDFs, I think we can accept Photoshop files, JPEGs, we can do .mlbs, so there's a lot of different things. And if you're seeing file formats, there are other options that we just turned off because we didn't think anyone would want them. But if you're seeing stuff that you're like, well, you know, the dominant picture book format is blah, 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 just give us an email and we can probably change it if you're not seeing what you need to see.
Thank you, Chris. Did you have a... Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
2 questions. One, if you're applying for like work release time, how do you manage that in the budget? Do you want to see like a pay stub or something like that? And the other question, if one of the things you're applying for is like attending a residency or a conference, and you don't know if you'll be accepted to
Okay,
it.
sure. Good question. So the first part of the question is, how do we want to see work release in the budget? We don't ask for proof or anything like that. We just ask for you to like give us your guesstimate. So we don't require pay stubs or anything like that. Just, you know, kind of show us, you know, approximately this is about how much I make an hour. This is the ballpark of what I'm trying to make. It doesn't have to be precise. We're not going to come after you if it's 5 cents off or anything like that. And the other question is, what about a writing conference, like if you don't get accepted? Again, I would have to check on that, but I think that that's fine. I mean, we would probably like ask you, like, maybe there's another writing conference or a different way that you could build your own retreat or something with the money, you know? So, yeah, good question. And the question in the back?
Yes, regarding writing conferences, I know that the state art board grants changed so that you couldn't do out-of-state conferences.
Yep.
Is that not the case for them?
Yeah, so the question is, with this grant, can you do out-of-state travel and conferences? Yes, you can. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
I just want to clarify, it's okay if you're an MFA student and you're not applying for tuition or anything related to school, it's okay to be a student?
I believe that's the case,
And
right?
then you should put that in the CV.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. There was a question back. Yes.
Is there any sort of restrictions for based on immigration status?
Well, that's a good question. Do you know?
I don't know.
I don't think so, and I don't know. So, but I'm sorry. Is there a restriction on immigration status? The answer is I don't know. But let's talk. Like, email me, and I can ask and see. Yeah.
Yeah, and when we post, if there's any questions here that come up that we don't know the answers to, when we post this video, we'll post some narrative answers to those questions too.
Okay. Was there a question over here?
That lady was ahead of me.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
What about proposals that you submitted to a publisher? Because applying for a grant to work on manuscript.
Do you mean like if you've already submitted the same proposal to a publisher? I think that's.
It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, do you mean like your work sample or what kind of proposal?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
That's
Yes.
fine.
Yeah. Yes.
Is the general practice to apply for the full $10,000 and then?
Oh, good question.
And then do the judges determine whether or not you should get that?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah. So the question is the common practice to apply for 10,000? You should be realistic about how much it's going to cost, but you should not pad your budget to reach 10,000. Does that kind of answer your
That's
question?
fine.
Yeah.
And if they think you are padding, would they say, I think she can do it in 7,000? Or
I
book
believe-
it, or that's a good project, let's just give her this much? for
You
this
know,
part?
I believe that they do that, yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, and in fact, I think that one of those you read, I remember this from last year,
Yeah.
it was a partial award.
Yeah,
Because
so-
they thought that one piece of it was sort of unrealistic,
Mhm.
whereas the rest of it was really a really strong proposal, so they awarded partial.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. Yes.
On those same lines,
Mhm.
I don't think you just answered this, if it's a multifaceted project where,
Mhm.
well, it's 10,000 for me to do this,
Mhm.
5,000 for this,
Mhm.
3,000 for that.
Mhm.
Do I have to decide which of those I want to ask you for, or can I present all the aspects and say, though I see that this entire thing would cost 50,000?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good question. My answer to that would be you want to be as focused as possible. Yeah.
Do that work
Mhm.
for them.
Them.
Make them do that work.
Mhm. Yeah. Other questions? Yes.
This just popped in my head.
Mhm.
If you have submitted a proposal
Mhm.
to a publishing house, do you need to include that in your grant proposal?
That
To say that I sent this proposal to, Simon & Schuster or whatever.
Okay. I think it's always a good idea to be as transparent as possible and say it's out there with the publisher, but it's not approved, and I don't know what's happening.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Other questions? I just had a thought. And I can't remember. Yes.
I should. Anybody else that hasn't gone first? Ready? Okay. So my question is the relationship with the sponsoring organizations.
Mhm.
Part of what I'm doing is a project that could be used in many communities.
Mhm.
Should I then be looking for a regional sponsor, or are you going to be happy with saying this particular town or this particular nonprofit would like to see this work done, and then the work broken, we do some workshops? And
You mean as a part of your proposal, you're thinking it would be beneficial to many different communities?
yeah, that's part of why I'm writing the novel.
Okay, and so the question is whether or not you should seek like letters of intent from other organizations?
Yeah, and how specific those letters have to be.
Right.
Because it can be like 2 or 3 saying, we'd like to use this and we would work with them to do this.
That's a good question. I mean, my recommendation is, of course, focus on the core of it, and then it might be a good idea to maybe get just fish out there and say, the start of it is there are at least 2 people two pockets that I believe are very interested, and I hope to do more than that, Okay. Other questions? Okay, yes.
Under your artistic resume,
Mm-hmm.
should we include information on what has been published?
Should you include information on what has been published? Yes, you should, in the CV, yes.
I have a question.
Did somebody back here have a question?
Oh, I have another one, but
Okay, sure.
Oh, okay, so I want to do a poetry compilation with some photographs that I've done, but then some old photographs. Is that okay? To include photographs that were taken, like, this is a historical thing.
Sure. So the question is, if you have a project that includes new work and old work, is that possible? Yes, it is. Mhm. Yes. Did you have?
Yeah, the Jerome eligibility for emerging artists.
Mhm.
It says who are not recognized as established artists
Yes.
by other artists, specifically writing as art, or if you're an artist in
Right.
other worlds.
That's actually something I have to call and ask them about because it's actually already come up. Generally speaking, it's kind of like usually it's mainly talking about writing, but it's also common sense. So it's like if Tom Cruise applied for this because he's never, because he's never written poems before, we would
Lady Gaga.
right, we would still be like, you're not emerging. You know what I mean? So kind of, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? So yeah, exactly. You're not hungry anymore. It's common sense. So like obviously we do recognize that if you're recognized in one thing, you're not recognized in another. But once you ascend to a certain level of status, then at heart, this is for emerging writers, and so that's who we want to try to make sure this money goes to. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Other questions? No? Awesome. You guys are. Oh, there you go.
Concerning the supplemental letters, are the letters specifically for, let's say, mentors you may want to work with, or editors, or are the letters in support of the project in some way? But it's not really directly.
It actually can be. It could be both, either or. So like the optional letters are basically. The way that I kind of would see it is if there's something about you that you feel isn't translating or isn't kind of included, that maybe a mentor or, whether it be the body of work you're presenting or you yourself as a person, I feel like that's where the supplemental materials are going to help you. Does that make sense? So let's say you have a really strong proposal and really great work sample, but the project itself may seem kind of crazy. If a panelist reads that and thinks that, then if they look into your supplemental materials and they see someone's like, hey, I actually do this and I think it's feasible and I can help this person with it, that's how it's going to help you. Does that kind of make sense? Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the other piece I know that has come up from the past panels that I've heard is if somebody were to present a project or a proposal where they said, something that would seem maybe unfeasible, like, I want to work with Stephen King, who's probably really busy.
Right.
The panel might, logically say, well, this just doesn't sound that well. But if there was a letter from Stephen King saying, and if you had the money, I'd love to work with you, that's really helpful for that kind of proposal. So
Yes. Great point. Yes. Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. Other questions? Yes.
If you applied for the grant and another last year was for an honorable mention but not granted the grant, is it useful to include that as in the
Sure.
application, or should we just not mention that?
Sure. You can mention it.
I mean, is that a positive thing?
Yeah, I think it is a positive thing. Yeah. Yeah, so the question is, if you're an honorable mention a year previously, should you mention it? I think you can mention it. Yeah, it's a positive, definitely. Yeah. Other questions? Yes.
I have a screenwriting degree, but
Uh-huh.
I'm also, that's not my main focus now, but is that like the kiss of death if I mention some, I have some semi-finalized scripts and some, contests and things like that. I mean, it shows that I can write, but
Sure.
it's, like, this is not for scripts.
Right.
So that's
Right.
my question then, is that, if you have any advice on just, obviously not use it as a writing sample,
Right.
obviously, but listing that in the CV then, is that like, not a good idea? Or?
I think it's fine, just in your narrative, make sure that you mention it. Be like, I know that, like, I do have some background in script writing, but this is not the project that I'm, am asking for funding for.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Did you have a question?
Yes, is there a website that we can go to for this information?
All this. So our website is www.loft.org. Not Ann Taylor Loft. That's the other one that's going to need you. Well, if you need some clothes, you can go there. So it's loft.org, and you want to click on programs, right? It's programs and awards, and then from there you should see Emerging Writers Grant, and you should see guidelines and a link to the submission portal. And very quickly, I believe March 28th at midnight is the deadline. Friday, March 28th. Even though it's a midnight deadline, we strongly suggest you not wait until 11:59 because anyone who works with online portals, you press something and everything disappears, and so give yourself a couple of hours. Okay.
Even more. Give yourself like try to do it while our office is open. While we have business hours, somebody could actually answer the phone and talk to you. If you're really having problems.
Who is the person that we would call?
kind of vary. I mean, if you're having like a submission problem, you're welcome to call me. My name's Chris Jones. You can email me at cjones@loft.org. I kind of handle our online systems. If you have a question about the actual guidelines or am I eligible or that kind of thing, or the programmatic stuff, you should contact Bao.
Yeah.
It has to be submitted online.
It does, yes.
The whole, I mean, everything?
Everything is, everything is submitted online through Submittable. I also strongly suggest you look at Chris's cool primer on how to do that. It can appear to be a little bit intimidating, but once you get in there, it's like, applying for a magazine subscription. It's
and a ton of, once you get an account on these, a ton of other organizations and journals and whatever are starting to use this. So once you have an account, you can start being able to
just do it.
Submit to all kinds of places.
Yeah.
Is this the same one that was used for departures and arrivals?
Yes.
Yes. Great. Was there another question?
I'm there.
Yes.
You've got all these kind of like mini sections. Ideally, to keep it simple on your end and for ourselves a little bit unsubmittable. I've used it a lot, but never for multiple documents. So, I mean, do you want like one page for bio? Do you want one page for the narrative, background, one page for the budget, or one filing? I mean, in case it goes over, your CV would be something different, or you want us to try to bundle that all together into one document, and then have writing sample here maybe and everything else in another.
Can I?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would highly. So the question is about files and how do you organize this all. Since there are these sort of requirements, I would highly recommend that you do multiple files. One that sort of meets each of the requirements. Just because when you've got people looking over these panels that are looking over 250 of these, you do not want them to be like, well, this is an incomplete application because it's only got one file. And the trickiest part of Submittable, I will say, the part that sort of I think trips up the most people is there's one window. I can't change this. Sorry, it's their thing. They have one window that allows you to submit your files. So you click on whatever it says, like submit my files, and you have to have them all. You have to like multiple select them. So on a Windows machine, you hit Shift and select them all. On a Mac, you hit Command and select them all. And that's the only way you can submit multiple files. You can't like submit one and then submit another and then submit another. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
With Submittable, sometimes they give you like a limit of 10 files. And one advice on something I did earlier was, if you have 6 letters, you might want to put them into one PDF. And but I don't know, is there a limit to how many files you can submit?
I believe because we have picture books in this, it's a big number. I think we limited it to 20 files. If you see a reason why you need more than that, we can up the limit.
Just encourage you.
The judges are gonna go.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Other questions? Let's see. Maybe we'll go 1, 2, 3. Okay.
I just wondered, so for the questions that you have to look at and answer, how are you going to put the answers somewhere?
We'll try to make them part of the video. And if there's something that you personally absolutely want to know, you can email me. Yeah. Yes.
I was wondering if you were available throughout this period, if we have questions or bounce something off.
Sure. I will be available for consultations, but not, this is important, not the week of the due date. Okay? So basically between the 20th, like the business days of leading up to the 28th, I am not available. Okay? And usually I'm only available Tuesday through Friday, and it's by appointment. So, but yes, I am available for consultation. Third question?
Yeah, so you were talking about like picture books and picture files. So some picture files can get to be quite large, if you're submitting several. So do you suggest compressing those images, or how does that?
As far as I know, you might not want to challenge this understanding, but as far as I know, there are no file limit sizes on uploads. I mean, because they have to be able to accept video as well, which has got to be bigger than any kind of image file that we're talking about. So I think they could, I mean, this is a submission management system that's supposed to be for this kind of thing. So I think big files are acceptable. But if you run into trouble, let me know, because I think that'd be helpful to know, for everyone to know.
Yes?
Will the judges be working from a printout of your submission?
No,
Or on
they will be working on screen. They used to, before this year, they had to work on printout, and you can imagine what that was like. So we're hoping that this will streamline and make it easier for everyone and save several forests.
Are they
Yes.
streaming?
I'm sorry?
When they're looking at it, are they streaming or will we be counting on their server? If you're submitting video.
That's a good question.
That's streaming,
Yeah.
will they be in there in like, some nice cabin somewhere?
This is all alien talk to me. I don't
Okay,
even
sorry.
know.
I'll just-
But no,
I'll
Chris. Yeah, yeah. Do you know, Chris?
I mean, so basically, you're going to be submitting a file that's a video file that they're going to then download.
That's the question, do they have to download or can they be streaming it, in which case? I can maybe just go to Supplemental now.
Yeah, that would be a good question for them. We've never had a video file. We've had the availability, but it's never come through. We've had audio files, but never a video one. So I'd be curious to see how it works.
There were a couple more questions. I think one over here and one over, a couple over here. Was there one over here? No? We'll move over here then. Yes.
Since I'll be looking at it on the screen, it won't matter if, say, the word processor that you use is a Mac or PC?
So does it matter if the word processor is a Mac or a PC? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Just make sure it's one of the eligible formats that we have on there, or get in touch with us if you think we're missing something.
Yeah. Okay.
So when submitting work sample, can you submit a mix of audio and video?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yes.
Does picture books only, is it only limited to children's picture books, or does it include
Will you email me, Susan? Because I have to call and ask. I would think that would be okay, but I would hate to have you apply and then say no. So let's ask first. Good question. Yes.
I know with the Minnesota State Arts Board, they have this rubric where they weigh the writing sample 45% and the proposal 35 or 25. Is there anything like that going on, or are they just kind of like?
I'm unaware of any rubrics. My instinct is to say that they're gonna weigh work sample and feasibility of project first and foremost. Yeah. So, yes.
I'm new at this, so is there any resource that we can go to for either examples or critiques of what we're doing before we
Sure.
submit the proposal?
So the question is, for people who've never done this before, are there resources or aids for people to workshop or kind of get an opinion? So you can schedule a consultation with me. I'm trying to think. Do you know if Springboard does anything like that?
We do.
So there's an organization called Springboard for the Arts. You can call them and see if they have anything or how they can help you. They're a great organization, and they're local. So yeah. Other questions? Yes, Linda.
Is there, what's your work within your native language, in English? Is that,
Well, I mean, you would probably have to send translated. Like it would have to be translated.
I meant like your work that you were creating more thoughts,
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's fine, but, like when you apply, your work sample has to show some indication of what you're going to do. So, I would say really work on the narrative, and part of the supplemental materials can also be explaining what you're going to do. So if you're like, it really is about trying to do stuff in another language, I would consider like writing a one-page narrative, like that's a supplemental material that talks about that. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah.
Well, just like similar to that, so it can be mixed languages.
In the work sample? I think so, but I would, strongly recommend that you give a translated version, because basically the baseline is there's 5 different judges that they're going to select, and their main language is English, and so they're going to have to judge the work. So if you do other languages, it's totally fine. Just make sure that that there's a translation there.
So if you could submit it in English and then say, part of your final project is that I want to translate it into this other language, and I'm going to pay for that, that would be like, okay? Or would you want samples of the translated version if you wanted to do that?
I don't, yeah. So the question is, what if, let's say you wanted to pay somebody as part of the grant to translate your work into another language? That's fine, and I don't think you necessarily have to show examples of it being translated into something else. Yeah, maybe a letter for a person. If, for supplemental material, if you think it's strong to have like one poem or one page translated for people to see the value of it, Yeah. Other questions? Yes.
So like problems with Submittable, if you've never used it, who would you go to?
You can connect with me, or you can connect also just with our pretty much anybody in our office can try to help you out. Also, I will say this. We can also try, but the best people to answer if you're having technical problems with Submittable is Submittable.
Okay.
They've got a wonderful knowledge base. They've got live chat people that you can connect with. They've got a help desk, and they're really good and responsive. So
FAQ too, don't they?
yeah, they have a whole FAQ. So I just, if you're having a lot of technical problems, or you're like, I have no idea what to do, that would be my first stop. And then if they're kind of unresponsive or giving you the runaround, then connect with us, and maybe we can try to.
Yeah, don't rely on us poets for that. Go directly to Submittable.
And if you've entered a web form, it's super. They try to make it as simple as possible.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can we get your names again?
Sure. So I'm Bao Phi. My email is B as in boy, P as in Peter, H as in Hector, I as in island @loft.org.
And I'm Chris Jones. You can reach me at cjones@loft.org.
Okay. Other questions? Yes.
So I know that you're interested in race and class and gender diversity. At least that's a consideration. I've been in a situation once before where they were really thinking about emerging writers as young. Is that a factor in terms of if you have?
No, it's not at all. Yeah. Great. So this has been great. I hope it's been helpful for you all. Last thing I'll say is the last info session we're doing is in Duluth, which is a week from today, and there are very few people signed up for that one. But we know that area has a lot of writers. So if you know of writers in that area who are willing to make the trip, again, it's free and there'll be coffee. Please let them know and have them register. All right. Thank you. Thank you.